What's the difference between color grading and color correction? In recent years, color grading has become the more popular term among content creators, carrying connotations of attention to detail, artistry, and an elevated cinematic aesthetic, while color correction can connote a more lifeless, clinical approach, as well as a more video aesthetic. But what does this distinction mean practically? Don't both disciplines employ the same hardware and software? Aren't they applied to the same task of polishing motion images? If I choose to call my work color grading, does that automatically improve the result? As we're going to find out today, there's a lot more to these terms than simply sounding trendy or dated. In fact, they can inform some of the most fundamental decisions that we make in a grade, decisions we might not even know that we're making. We're going to take a look at 3 examples in today's video. Images can be encoded in a log or a gamma state. Gamma encoding was devised for preparing an image for viewing on a display, while log encoding was devised for storing maximum dynamic range, using a scheme similar to the one that our vision system does. Color correction traditionally operates on images when they're in a gamma state, owing to its history in broadcast video, wherein last-minute corrections would be made just before a piece of content goes to air. A little more contrast here, a little less saturation there, etc. And while this may sound like a straightforward approach, it carries a lot of compromises. Namely, the tools that we have to use when we're operating on images in this state are counterintuitive and complicated, and they rarely translate from one shot to another. For example, if I'm on a shot and I want to make a simple exposure adjustment, I have to feel my way to that with a combination of lift, gamma, and gain. And once I've done that, that recipe is unlikely to translate to any other shot but the one that I'm on. Color grading, by contrast, has its origins in color timing and digital intermediate, and it's much more accustomed to operating on images in a log state. When we're manipulating images in this state, we can use simpler tools that feel more intuitive. They feel more like we're manipulating physical light and shadow. For example, if I want to make that same exposure adjustment on an image in a log state, I can do it with one knob, offset, and having done that, that adjustment is far more likely to translate across multiple shots than if I'd made it when I was in a gamma environment. The legacy of color correction is to directly alter a result, the display-baked image. The approach with color grading is to tailor a process to a result that requires no alteration at all. Think of it like baking a cake. You go into your kitchen and you assemble about the right ingredients in about the right order, and then you put them into the oven for about the right amount of time at about the right temperature. Cake comes out of the oven and it tastes about right. It's not quite sweet enough, and you notice that there are some corners that are a little uneven, but you just cut those corners off and you make sure to use a frosting that is extra sweet to compensate for the lack of sweetness in the cake itself. This would be a color correction approach to baking a cake. Now let's rewind to the beginning of the recipe. What kind of cake do we want to make? What should it taste like? What should it smell like? What should it look like? Based on that, we're going to assemble the exact right ingredients in the exact right order before placing everything into the oven for the exact right amount of time at the exact right temperature. This would be a color grading approach to baking a cake. It's about finessing a process to a desired result rather than trying to fix a problematic result. With process-based grading, we can neutralize undesired things, color casts, overexposures, etc., while introducing desired things, contrast, guiding the eye with shapes, colorimetry, etc. And we can do it all as an organic part of a process rather than a barrage of last-minute fixes aimed at a result, aimed at a cake that's already come out of the oven. Color correction and its tools were developed to work in a display-referred paradigm, meaning you make all of your grading decisions based on what you're seeing on the display you're mastering with. It sounds reasonable enough until you understand that even the best displays can only display a fraction of all the light and color that a professional camera can capture. It's kind of like driving with your windshield blacked out with only a tiny peephole to see the road through. Color grading prefers to work in a scene-referred paradigm, meaning we employ technical mapping to transform what the camera saw into what the display can show, and we do all of our grading upstream in the larger color space, keeping things in the realm of the photographic for as long as possible. This leads to more consistent, naturalistic, and efficient results. On top of this, if you're doing a grade in a display-referred paradigm, your results are only valid for that particular display. For example, if I need to master for SDR, HDR, and a theatrical deliverable in a display-referred workflow, that's 3 separate grades that I have to do manually. By contrast, in a scene-referred workflow, I can do 1 grade that guides everything, and I simply change my target output to reflect my destination. I hope I've given you something to chew on when it comes to taking a color grading versus a color correction approach. It's not enough to know the right words. We need to know the underpinning to each of these philosophies so that we can work in the manner most consistent with our goals. Today, we have access to more affordable and better tools than ever before, but no software can do this part for us.